Welcome to Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Hudson Patch Editor Michael Foley, and today we'll be talking with Hudson School District Communications Specialist Tracy Habisch Ahlin about class schedule changes at the Hudson High School and how that fits into the broader High School Learning for the Future initiative. Welcome, Tracy.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the changes at the high school.
So what's going on? What's different this year?
Actually, we have two schedule changes this year at the high school, and the first being Thursday mornings are late start days. And so not like our typical late starts that we've had for several years now, but only an hour late start for students, and this is due to collaboration time for the teachers. So that's the schedule change that will impact families the most because it changes how they start their day. And then there's another schedule change due to our freshman advisories. But the one that probably interests folks the most is that Thursday late start.
So what is this time for? It's the teachers who are going to be collaborating during this hour?
Correct. For several years now, we have used the same collaboration model for our teachers at the elementary level and also at the middle school level with great results in both reading and math. And what that collaboration time allows for is teachers to come together in departments and talk about instructional strategies to support students, to look at student data, to look at, perhaps we're working on a lesson that we learn really quickly through this process that students aren't understanding. So as a group of teachers, we can make adjustments, provide greater support for students. We can share instruction strategies that we've used that, hey, this is what's really working well for me, maybe this would work for you. In the elementary schools, that works pretty easy during the regular school day. If you can imagine an elementary day where your fourth grade teachers are able to come together during one period of time when their students are out at specials, and specials are music, phy-ed, computer time. And so all the fourth grade students can be scheduled out into their specials so that the fourth grade teachers can all come together. Similar at the middle school, where the teachers in houses, we have a house model at the middle school, so the teachers in that house can come together at the same time when their students are out in specials. Obviously at the high school that doesn't work quite so easily because students are in classes in all different areas.
So what does this collaboration look like for teachers? Is this just teachers doing a little powwow or is this like school for teachers? What does this look like for them?
It's a bit of that, school for teachers. And again, your departments coming together, and we actually have our biology department is one example of a successful model with that collaboration time, and actually has been recognized nationally for their efforts of coming together, looking at common assessments, and looking to make sure that all students in, let's say, biology grade 10 get the exact same curriculum with the exact same expectations. In the past, teachers often taught on their own, and were very independent. And so if you think back to your high school years, there may have been the easy teacher or the hard teacher, but what we're trying to do is make sure all students get the same education with the same high expectations. And with those high expectations comes a high level of support so our students can succeed.
Okay. So this is a lot easier to pull off, obviously, at the elementary and middle school levels, as you were saying. But you're saying to pull this off at the high school level, they need to actually take an hour away from at the beginning of Thursdays. That's the best way to pull this off?
Right. We looked at other options, obviously. The schedule is very difficult at the high school to make that change during the day. After school is a busy time for teachers because that's when they're meeting with students who need extra help. We have a lot of teachers who coach, and so that after school time gets to be a very busy time. And we also learned when we started to institute those late starts for professional staff development, which we do throughout the school year, that seemed to be the best time because there aren't the interruptions that teachers often experience in the afternoons when they are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, is supporting students in giving them the extra help that they need after school.
Okay. Well, you mentioned earlier about disrupting parents a little bit on Thursday mornings. What are some of the complaints that you've heard from parents and from community members?
One concern that has been expressed is that in some way this takes away from learning time for the students. And we are required by the state to meet a specific number of hours in a specific number of days. So if you look at the schedule, we did change the schedule so students are there longer now to accommodate that time, and also passing time has been shortened for students, so we do meet, actually we exceed what the expectations are from the state as far as the number of hours and number of days our students.
Okay.
So there isn't anything that changes the actual learning time for our students as a result of this change.
Sure. And then, so what are students doing while the teachers are at teacher school?
Right. So students have, those students who are bused to school would come at their regular time, so that doesn't change for those students. So students who come on the buses at their regular scheduled time will be able to take advantage of breakfast that's provided by the cafeteria, so they can spend time there, and all their time wherever they're at in the building is supervised. That was one of the concerns also raised. But there will be intramural sports provided for students to participate in, other activities for students, access to the media center, so if they need some study time, they have that. We have a great group of support staff and student leaders who will help us during that time. But bottom line, students are going to be supervised. They're not going to be crazy throughout the buildings.
Okay. So who is providing the supervision? Is it some of the staff members? Is it the teachers? Are they rotating in and out on that
it's
duty?
Our support staff.
Okay.
And I would imagine administration that's in the building also will be certainly very aware of what's going on.
Great. So tell us a little bit about how this fits into your broader High School Learning for the Future initiative, which is part of the HSD 2025
Perfect,
plan.
yes. This wasn't just a quick decision made by the district and by the high school to let's try this. We had the success at the elementary school and the middle school that I spoke of earlier. We have a very high success rate with reading at our elementary schools because the teachers have that collaboration time where we have 89% of our students reading at or above grade level, which is quite significant. We have some exciting stuff going on at the middle school in the area of math, where our students are achieving, again, at higher levels, so they're able to take more advanced math. But those are two examples of why collaboration time is important. When we started looking at researching our strategic plan, we didn't do a typical strategic planning process where everybody came together with a bunch of Post-its for a Saturday and said, this is what we're going to do. We actually spent a whole year studying best practices, looking at model programs, looking at or interviewing business people. We interviewed the CEO of Anderson's and one of the a gentleman from 3M to talk about what are they seeing as far as future needs in the workforce. So we really looked at a very comprehensive plan for how do we prepare our graduates for the 21st century. And out of that, we realized that we can't continue to do high school in the same way that we've always done high school. Obviously, students need a high level of academic learning, but they also have a lot of skills that they need to bring into the 21st century. So those global connections, the teamwork and collaboration kinds of skills that they need in the workforce that we hear from business people that they appreciate and look for in their employees. So as we finished that piece in figuring out our strategic plan, then we started to focus on the high school, kind of doing a backward design. Okay. So this is what we want in 2025 for all of our graduates, but then what do we need to put in place at the high school, which will then tell us what else we need to do at the middle school and elementary to support that. And so 2 years ago, we started the high school Learning for the Future, and pretty much the same model as we did with our strategic planning, where we pulled together teachers from the high school, administrators, students, parents, and community members to look at those best practices, look at high achieving school districts, visit high achieving school districts to get an idea of what would work here in Hudson.
How do you look that far into the future? Obviously we're looking pretty far into the future, and nobody can really seem to
Correct.
get a beat on what's going to happen in the
Correct.
next 5 to 10 years with the way technology is going.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of challenges did you run into looking all the way to 2025?
What was interesting is looking at the trend data, looking at, just demographics, how demographics are changing. So we went a little bit beyond what a school district would traditionally look at, just to see how things are changing for our country, and how that will impact. So, impact student learning and where we want students to be. What's going on globally, which a lot of people or a lot of school districts don't look at when they're doing their strategic plan. They're usually pretty focused on their area. Do we have it all? Probably not. But will we continue to take that document out and continue to tweak it and make sure that we're really getting students to where they need to be? Yes. When I was out helping with the development of the strategic plan, one of the things people said out in the community, we really like where this is going. Please don't leave it on a shelf.
Okay.
Make it come alive, and that's really been the commitment of the board and administration and all of our staff.
So after doing all this thorough review, if you had to look into the crystal ball, what would you say the area and the world would look like in 2025 for our graduating students?
Well, I do. I mean, in some of it's even now. I mean, I know that our students need to have more connections globally, and that's an area that we need to reach out and do more. I know one of the initiatives that we're doing with High School Learning for the Future is involving students in project-based learning. And the benefit of project-based learning, provided it's rigorous, and that's, because a lot of people think of projects as being, a diorama or something like that, and that's not what we're looking at. Some examples of where project-based learning really has that rigor is where, and also gets students involved and really interested in their own learning, is they're picking what they want to learn. So if it's, I want to develop biodiesel, and where the student is actually going about the business of doing that. So they're pulling in math and science and doing that. They're getting community support and figuring out who are my resources in the community who can help me do this.
Okay.
But also with the backdrop of state standards.
Okay.
In meeting those.
How do you push children to go for biodiesel study instead of the study of Justin Bieber or some other pop culture thing that kids are into?
Well, if they can figure out a way to take that pop culture piece and tie it into how does this fit for state standards, then more power to them. That if they can figure out how they can pull it into the arts or some critical piece on media today, certainly. But they're always going to have to tie their work back to what state standards are being met by my project.
So, and then a lot of this is, with technology, a lot of it is costly in terms of buying new equipment. How much of it is new equipment and technology, and how much of it is just changing the way of teaching methods?
Right. Actually, we're starting to talk about how do we take advantage of technology that our students are walking into that building with every day, their smartphones, and how do they use that so that we're not having to invest in more laptops, for example. Not to say we're not going to invest in laptops, but how do we do it differently? We have probably the majority of our students are walking in with cell phones, and a lot of those students can access information. And we actually had a team just participate in some technology training that is very interesting, and how do you use smartphones for learning in the classroom beyond texting and
well, and part of this is obviously has to be getting the teachers on board and comfortable with what they may see as a distraction in the classroom. At what point do they see it as a distraction, and how do you get them to get over that hurdle and see it as a learning tool?
Right. Well, what we started and what we will continue to do is you usually have teachers who are very comfortable with the technology, and so those are your initiators and who will show how it can be used, because others will come on board when they see, oh yeah, that's interesting, I'd like to learn more on how to do that. At our welcome back to all of our staff, we did one very simple survey through phones. So staff were asked to bring their phones, they responded to the survey, and right away their responses were up on the screen for everybody in the auditorium to see and see how you can use that in the classroom when you're trying to get a read on where your students are at. And it's instant.
Do you have any examples of how that's being used now in the classroom?
I don't.
Hopefully next year we'll have some.
Right. And perhaps if we're able to do a follow-up, those students can talk about it more.
Great. Well, that's really all the questions I had about this whole initiative. What else am I missing? What else would you like to say?
The other item, as far as schedule changing, is the freshman advisory, that most families won't be impacted because it doesn't really change their schedule, but it does change the schedule within the school day. In the past, the district had a program, a course that all freshmen took, which was called the Freshman Year Initiative, which was really to provide freshmen with an orientation to the school, but also some of the support in study habits and that kind of thing. It really didn't get to the level that we really wanted as far as the support for students. And when we were doing the research for high school learning for the future, we recognized that advisories were critical in helping support students at both ends, at those transition ends for students, so as they were coming in as freshmen, but also helping them as they leave and go out into post-secondary education or into the workforce. So advisories could help with that. Most people, if they think back to high school, or a lot of people may have experienced a homeroom where you had the same teacher all 4 years who kind of checked in with you for a brief period of time. This is longer than that. They meet on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for 25 minutes. And so it's a small group of students, 20 students to one teacher, where they come together, they're getting that support, that teacher's checking in with them to make sure that they're on track as far as their work, that they're getting that support. They have that one teacher identified in the building who is their go-to teacher.
Okay.
So that's different. And what will happen each successive year is we'll add another class to it. So eventually all 9th through 12th graders will be in an advisory.
Okay, and this is the first thing in the morning?
No, actually it's in the middle of the day.
It's in the middle of the day. Mm-hmm. And it's 20 minutes, you said, or?
25 minutes.
Okay. And so what's the teachers' focus during this time?
The teachers, we had a group of teachers who worked over the summer to develop curriculum items that they'll be working on, so character kinds of things, or learning strategies, that homework and study kinds of things, so they'll be working on that. We also have student mentors, so they're upperclassmen who will be coming in and doing connections kinds of things. So we really want all students to feel connected, because we know from research that if students feel connected to their school, they perform better academically. So it's really, again, putting in those high levels of support for our students so they can achieve at higher levels.
Great. Well, that's about all the time we have today. Thank you for joining us, Tracy. And
thank you, my pleasure.
Anything else?
Oh, there's lots. We'd love to come back.
We'll see if we can get that done.
Great.
Thanks again.
Thank you.